Alright guys, here we are back in the shop once again, trying to put what's left of this poor motorcycle back in order. Alright, the main goal for today is getting the wiring harness back on the bike with the new wiring harness, the fresh fuse box. Last time I was in the shop, I got a lot of the residue from the fire extinguisher off of the bike. There's still a good bit left, but I got it out of the trouble areas, so when I get the bike put back together, I can take a hose, spray the rest of it off, and I think we'll be just fine. Again, still the primary issue I have is the issue of not actually being able to start the bike because of the busted ignition. I'm trying to see if I can find a way around that. Unfortunately, they're nationally back ordered through Yamaha. I was down at the dealership yesterday down at Big Number 1. They don't have any in the there are no new sets in the country right now, so that's disappointing. I hate that we've got that issue, but it is what it is. We'll roll with it. I've seen a few on eBay for around $150, give or take, complete set. Working on getting the funds for that. So anyway, today we're going to get the main wiring harness put back in the bike, get the air box put back on, get all the connections hooked up, get the battery put back in, and then we'll hook up the ignition, see if maybe we could get it to turn over with the key. It could be, we may get lucky. If we get lucky, we can get the bike to start. That would be amazing. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, last time I was in here, we got a lot of the residue from the fire extinguisher off the bike. We got some of the things cleaned up that were just, I mean, they were just covered in this. I don't know how they got that much residue under the fairings. I'm not sure what they were doing. I still got to clean the fuel tank off, but primary thing today is getting the main wiring harness back into the bike. So that's what we're going to be doing. Let's get to it. This is the new wiring harness. So, well, new to me wiring harness. It came off of a wreck bike, but it looks like it's in very good condition. I don't see any issues that would cause me concern. The biggest issue I see is trying to remember how the hell to put the thing back together. You know, I'm kind of a person that should document, but never does. You know, when I work on computers, there's always a screw or two left. Hopefully that won't be the case this time. The first thing we're going to have to do is run these wires between the airbox and the frame like we had issues with before. As you can see, we're going to have to run the cabling through there. It'll come up through here. The wiring harness will start here with the fuse box. It's coming down here, run along this crossbar, and then down the side of the frame, between the frame and the airbox, and back up to the fuel injectors, ignition coils, headlight assemblies, ignition, all that fun stuff. And then once we get that done, we'll go ahead and put the tank back on, and we'll see if maybe we'll get lucky and with the ignition will work. I don't know. There's some weird stuff going on with the ignition. I'm gonna have to really look at and see what they've done to it. I know they've cut some wires and tried to splice in a toggle switch. I honestly don't know if that was effective or not, and I don't know if my battery's still good. The battery may be shot just because, you know, they caught the damn thing on fire. But let's get to it. Alright, so the first step is we're going to pull this part of the wire front. This part of the wire is the part that goes to the back of the gauge cluster. And then you've got some miscellaneous wires for some of the other connections we've got in there. The distributor caps, turn signals, headlights, and some of your other miscellaneous stuff up there. So we're going to pull all this up and slowly but surely start making our way forward. Try to get our battery cables out of the way. Now there's a lot of cables here, so it doesn't leave for a lot of room. So I guess the biggest thing to note is just have a little bit of patience and work the air box to give you enough clearance for everything that needs to go through. So there's a lot of connections that need to be pulled through, and for me it's a little difficult to remember where everything goes. Okay, so let's see here. Alright, get our distributor cables through here. Oh, come on. Stop being stubborn. Alright, here we go. Alright, the first part's through. Here's the hard part. You've got all the connections for the fuel injectors and some of the sensors. And it's a little hard to get enough clearance to get all these little connections through. Sometimes it might be better just to kind of feed them through one at a time, if clearance will allow for it. So it's a little difficult to do, but I think we can make some magic happen here. Alright, here we go. There's a little magic. A little more magic. Alright, there we go. Ugh, dirt. Good for the lungs. Alright, so we got a couple more cables here we've got to feed through. And then once we get these cables fed through, we can go ahead and put the air box back in place and start working our way through for getting the fuel injectors and everything reconnected. Also, it would help to have if you're doing this yourself, a nice bag of zip ties, which I do have around here somewhere. Just gotta find them. They're older zip ties, but I mean they don't have to be pretty in this case, because there's going to be so much that's covered. This piece for the fuse box itself, got this little clip here. That's actually on the bottom of that plastic piece sitting there on the corner. I don't know how well you can see that, but that actually went to the bottom cover right here. I'll end up putting that back in here in a little bit before I finish everything up. See this very well. You see, we got the ignition coil right here. This line right here, and these cables here, when I plugged them in the first time, were on top. They route much better because this metallic tray right here is where these connections go, and I believe these are for the headlights and the ignition and a few other different things. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I just know they got to be plugged in. You know, I'm no mechanic. I'm just literally winging this. Like I said, I've never done a project of this magnitude before, so this is all a learning experience for me. This is going to be kind of complicated. So I got so much crap back here. You can see the massive pile of parts I have, just of shit that I can't use. It's really annoying. So try to make my way around here. Alright, so right there's my distributor cap. That's one of them. The other one sits right over here. It's right there, that little black round thing. As you can see here, the ignition switch, they put this on-off toggle switch on there, and I'm not real sure what they were trying to get at when they did this. It's actually really, really damn annoying that they did it this way. I don't know that I can repair it, but I might be able to. I'm going to try. So I'm looking at my headlights at the moment. You know, I may be able to jerry-rig these to still work. I mean, technically the headlights should still work. I'm just not real sure how I'm going to mount them to the top bolts And I've got two sets of bolts here that'll hold them in place. I got the top set and the bottom set. I may just find a way to zip tie them, because I mean they stayed in place just fine. I didn't even know they were broken until later, once I actually got in there and started looking and like trying to tear everything out. So I may drill a small hole in them in the housing and just zip tie them for the time being until I can figure out what I'm going to do with them, because I may replace them. I may, get the projector halos. But honestly, right now, guys, I just want to ride. So if the bike's not 100%, but I can still ride the damn thing, I'm okay with that until I can get all the funds I need. That's the other thing I gotta say about the R3, guys. I'm like 260. I'm 260 pounds, and the R3 is surprisingly quick for what it is. Like, I was genuinely impressed with the R3 because of it's a peppy little bike. It is. It's an impressive little bike for what you're paying for. Cause I've been kind of frustrated this week, to be honest, man. I've been very frustrated this week. I've been frustrated because this bike project is overwhelming for me. It is more project than I've ever taken on before, and I don't really have the expertise for something like this. But I went to the dealership, and of course they tried to sell me another bike, and I get that. That's their job. But I don't want to finance another bike. I really don't. But I do want another bike. Or I want a bike, period. But it got me thinking, while I was talking to them, for what I'm going to have to put into this bike to fix it, the way that I want it, I could probably get a used CBR 600RR, which is a bike that I would love to have. I would love to have the CBR RR. But there's always a but with me. I like this bike. I do. I really enjoy this bike. And I would recommend anybody who is on the fence about the R3, do it. Especially if you're a new rider, the R3 is by far one of my most favorite bikes I have ever ridden. I love the R3, and that's the only reason why I'm spending this much time trying to fix it, because it's such a wonderful bike to ride. It's so much fun to ride. But that being said, this is not an easy project either. Alright guys, so got the new harness in, got all the connections hooked up. I haven't got the gas tank back on it yet because I'm going to wait until I'm absolutely sure there's nothing else I need to do. I did manage to get down to the ignition. I've got the gauge mount, the gauge cluster mount taken off from here. As you can see, I've got full access to the ignition. I'm just trying to figure out how to get it off. Yamaha uses these security bolts that once they're torqued in, rounds the heads out, and they're really hard to get out. Tried drilling it out, because that's what everybody online has suggested. No dice yet. Worst case scenario, I'll just replace the entire triple tree. I'll just replace the entire thing and just be done with it. I've seen a lot of the ignitions that are online anyway come with the triple tree. So I don't know if that's the route I'll go, or I'll continue trying to get the ignition out with these bolts, but they are a colossal pain in the butt so far. But I did manage to pull out some of the bad wiring, which I have thrown over here, I think. Yeah. So here was the ignition wiring harness. That's where they cut it and installed that switch. So this harness is going to have to be replaced, which I believe it will come with the new ignition when I buy it. So that should not be an added cost. But the only thing I don't have hooked up yet is the ignition coils and the headlights. Like I said, I want to see if I can reuse the headlights, if I can find the broken pieces that screw into the frame. If I can, we'll see what we can do. Maybe we can salvage it. If not, maybe I can find a new housing on eBay relatively cheap. Initially, I was thinking about going with the projector halos, which I would love to do. But for the sake of keeping this build cheap and more realistic, I think I'm just going to try to reuse the stock headlights. But I'm going to keep trying, keep digging. Got some things in the works that may help. Had some people reach out to me and offering to help. I don't know if they'll be able to or not yet, but stay tuned. We'll see what happens.